I am joined by NXT North American Champion Oba Femi. Next title defense is coming up this weekend. NXT Heatwave. Everybody's excited to go to Toronto. How you doing today?
I'm doing well, Bill. Thanks for having me on the show.
Get a shot
Great.
of got a shot of the title right there.
Yeah.
You have a title match against Wes Lee, who was out a few months. Feels a little bit like a redemption story for him. Uh, and then when it comes to you, I feel like you're playing spoiler because the stipulation added to the match is if he loses, he can't challenge you again. How are you feeling not only going into the match, but having so much attention on a title defense as far as the stipulation, Wes's story? You've been dominant. There's a lot of things making this feel like a very big match. So how are you feeling about all those factors going into this weekend?
I understand where all the Wesley supporters are coming from. The Wesley's story is very, very inspirational. Orton is back, working hard all those months to come back quicker than anticipated. Once had the North American Championship, and that was his claim to fame, and the title rose his career to heights unforeseen. Yada yada yada. But my goal going into this PLE Heatwave is to rewrite the history books.
Mhm.
It's high time everybody stops seeing Wes Lee as the greatest North American champion ever. There's been talks about that a lot lately, especially since his return. And my goal is just to change that narrative. It's time that you start to acknowledge Oba Femi as the greatest North American champion in
Mhm.
NXT history.
You've impressed pretty much since you've came on the scene. Like, you've had uh, matches outside of uh, the breakout tournament. You obviously you won that tournament last year outside of the title reign that's been going for a few months. And I know I read this a few months ago. I think it was in the Miami Herald. So you talked about first impressions and how important it was, and you feel like you knocked it out of the park, so to speak. How do you feel like your follow up has been? Because every week it seems like people, more and more people are getting on board, getting behind you, supporting you, saying like, "Oh man, look at what this guy's doing as far as being a dominant champion." So, how do you feel like the follow up to your first impression has been?
I mean, the simple answer to that would be good, right? But
Mhm.
I feel like it's more than that. But who am I to say it's been good? Like it's all at the end of the day, it's all opinion based because there's a lot of people saying follow up is great, we love him, digging his stuff, and there's still some naysayers and there's still some people who are not quite Obafemi believers quite yet, and everyone is entitled to their opinion. And like my thing is, this is me. Like
Mhm.
sometimes, sometimes, a lot of people play character on TV. I'm not one of those people. Like this story that you are witnessing, this rise that you're witnessing is as organic and as tied to reality as it can possibly be. Like
Mhm.
because at the end of the day, I am an athlete who is trying to make it to the top of an industry. Like
Mhm.
when you strip everything away, that's exactly what I am as a man. And that's exactly what I'm doing on TV every single week. And I feel like that's organic rise and that story is what the people want to see. So I'm just doing me.
Mhm.
I'm just doing my thing. So it's left to the people to either be impressed by it, think it's good, or not be impressed and think it's bad.
Mhm. Part of the or I should say, another part of the reason that I think you've caught on is the entrance, the music, the walk to the ring. Can you talk a little bit about where that came from? There's a confidence to it, but obviously before you get to TV, there's some workshopping where it's like, oh, how do I present myself? So can you
Mhm.
talk a little bit about where that strut and that attitude came from?
Well, the march to the ring, especially, is just has more to do with the entrance theme song than it has to
Mhm.
do with any necessary character presentation. I feel like People have definitely seen that struts before, but like most people are not sure where they've seen it. But like if you look from like the Buddy Rogers to the Ric Flairs to the Oba Femis, it's the same thing. It just
Yeah.
done slightly differently and different renditions of it. And it flows with the beat. So the struts and all that stuff, a lot of those additions have been again organic because it
Mhm.
goes with the beat. So I started doing it and I kept doing it because it made sense. It felt like a march to war as a march of like confidence as opposed to like a charge, you know. I've never understood like why your music would hit and then you bolt to the ring and you know you spend as little time
Mhm.
on camera as possible. What is that? Like why are
Yeah.
you doing that? Why are you running? Why are you running? There's no need to do that. But if you take your time and you march to war, there's a certain confidence that goes with that.
Mhm.
Look at the end of Undertaker's entrance. It takes 10 minutes, but that's 10 minutes of anticipation and confidence and you know aura.
Mhm.
So that's the same thing I try to adopt.
It's kind of funny that you mentioned, like the Ric Flair, like the Fargo strut, because I don't think I put it together that, the the hand gesture, like they go so wide with it. And yours is a little bit more reserved, but it
Mhm.
adds so much more. So, I enjoy it. And, on a more comical note, I think the only time it's appropriate to run is if it's WrestleMania and there's a really long ramp. like like John Cena booking it to the ring. Like I'm okay with it then, but I'm with you as far as taking in the atmosphere and getting the most out of it for you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you've ever seen the arena at NXT.
Mhm.
It's maybe 30 feet long.
Yeah.
So why would I book it, you know?
Hmm. All right. On the flip side, I asked about first impressions. You said how important it can be. So, what would your advice be to somebody that maybe didn't, they overthought it? Because that can happen too much. They overthink it and it can go wrong. What would your advice be to somebody that's like racking their brain trying to figure out like, oh, how do I make this work?
Well, I mean, if you've already made the impression that that's done,
Hmm.
however good it went. But it's not the end of the world. If even if you have a quote unquote bad first impression, I feel like over time people will start to actually realize who you are, and it will eventually come across. Even if you haven't even found out who you are
Hmm.
or who you want to present yourself to be, at some point you will, and the more consistent you are, eventually the people will get it. The people will start to come to your side. Like I know a lot of people who have started a new job or went to a new school, and at first they're the weird kid or they're the new guy, but after 1 or 2 years, like you're not the new guy anymore. You're not the weird kid anymore. You are, you're John or you're Bill, or you're Evans or whoever you actually are, and
Hmm.
that's how people will start to perceive you. They will find out who you are
Hmm.
in the long run.
I think Becky Lynch is a good example of this. People were celebrating her TV debut last week. The clips are all over the internet,
Mm-hmm.
doing the Irish jig, and it's like, look what she's done since then. Like
Yes,
she's the man, one of the most decorated women's superstars in WWE history. So first impressions, yes, they are important, but they're not the only thing. I think, rest pro wrestling WWE has shown that you can reinvent yourself, and you know it's okay to figure things out along the way.
100%.
So you're a former track and field athlete. What was the most surprising way your college career prepared you for WWE?
Ooh, reps.
Hmm.
Reps. One thing about being a thrower is you have a circle, you have your shot put, your discus, whatever implement you have, your javelin, whatever it is, and you do constant repetitions of the same thing. And it was boring, monotonous, uh,
Hmm.
sometimes excruciatingly, painfully average. especially on a bad day. Imagine you are not having a good day and you just have to do the exact same motion that you're not successfully executing over and over
Mhm.
again. But those reps build you, and that's the same mentality I have when it comes to like professional wrestling. I'm a very big drill guy. I don't always believe in like adjusting things on the fly, even though that is another really good skill in and of itself. I more believe if you drill something into your brain hard enough, it will stick. It will become second nature. And like if I want to get good at anything, the first thing I do and the first thing I think of is drills. And that's the biggest takeaway that track and field gave me.
Mhm. Is that true for NXT providing more reps as far as live events? Because you've only had, TV and live events, you've only had about 40 matches. So would that be the same thing too, as far as getting comfortable in the ring?
Yes, I mean, you have to think about those reps. But then when I say reps, I'm talking about more like training reps. And
Mhm.
that actually leads me to another thing that track and field taught me. Uh, People will like perceive the ring at the PC and the ring in the NXT arena as two different places.
Mhm.
Because back in the day, I had, of course, we had our shot put grounds, we had our stomping grounds, our own rings, and then we would travel to, I don't know, Indiana, and you would go compete in their own rings.
Mhm.
And at some point, you have to get over the fact that this is Indiana, and it's a different place, and it's a different weather, and all that jazz. You have to acknowledge that the ring is 7 feet at home in Alabama, and the ring is 7 feet here in Indiana. And that's the same mentality here. Some people excel very well at the PC with no eyes on them. And then when they go to the live events and they go on NXT, they fumble or they drop the ball or they mess up or whatever. You just have to remember that the ring has four corners at the PC.
Mhm.
The ring has four corners in the NXT arena.
You always hear talk about call-ups when talent on NXT reach a certain level of success. Do you have any thoughts on, people? I feel like people are always saying like, "Oh, when's he going to Raw or SmackDown?" But like I said, you've only had about 40 matches. So how do you take focus on when I'm getting called up and put more of that talk on focus on what I'm doing right now on NXT? Why don't you watch my title reign while it's going on?
I 100% subscribe to that. I believe very much in the now, in the moment, in the title reign, in the North American Championship, in the feud with Wes Lee, because that's what's going on now. Because when people start to think about call-ups, they start to tunnel vision their own progress. They forget about all the steps and the corners and the dips and the highs that they have to go through to get to,
Mm.
the end of the tunnel. And I don't like to do that. And as far as the fans, wanting me to get called up soon, I appreciate that. I mean, of course, it's a good thing that the people actually think of me as that caliber of talent, and that's great. And I do believe I am too, but like,
Mhm.
I believe in the now. I believe in elevating this title. I believe in making whatever feud I'm in the best it can possibly be. And I'm all about making the next match better than the last.
Is there a match in your title reign that you would say best represents who you are as a champion? Or maybe it's a preview for Wes Lee. Is there one that stands out and you can sit back and be like, yeah, I really am happy with this performance?
As much as I would love to say the stand and deliver triple threat with Josh Briggs and Daja, because that was the best match.
Mhm.
I'll have to say the one with Dragon Lee at Vengeance Day. Because that was the debut. It's like, okay, he won the breakout tournament, he cashed in, he has the title, but now what? What does he have now? And I feel like that match was the first introduction to like what Oba Femi is all about. Oba Femi is a young, hungry athlete, warrior who is looking to make a name for himself and carve out his own legacy, fulfill destiny. And with that comes a certain level of chip being on his shoulder, something to prove. And I feel like that match like exhibited all of those. Like it showed who Oba Femi is. Like he might be young, he might be inexperienced, but he knows what he's doing.
You can add to that on July 7th at NXT Heatwave. Your challenger is Wes Lee. Anything else you want to plug or promote before we get out of here?
Oh yes, Heatwave in Toronto, Canada. You can get your tickets on Ticketmaster, or you can watch from the comfort of your home on Peacock, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific.
All right. Best of luck this weekend. I appreciate the time and look forward to seeing what you continue to do on the NXT brand as North
Thank you.
American champion.
Thank you so much, Bill. I appreciate you. Thanks for having me.